So this week's talking points, guys. First up, like photographers. I've had a few conversations with photographers this week, and videographers about like pricing. And what I'm seeing from a lot of young photographers and videographers is that the cost of creative is too high. By that I mean photographers and videographers are charging way too much money. Photographers and videographers are charging too much money. And I say this, I'm a photographer, I'm a videographer, I'm a content creator, but the cost of content is way too high. I hear this weak excuse all the time of, oh, I spent 10 grand on kit, so my day rate has to be X amount and the cost of this video has to be £3,000, blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you something. A coffee shop, you know that big expensive coffee machine you see sitting on the bar at the coffee shop? Those things cost like £5,000 or £6,000, right? But the coffee shop doesn't charge $200 for a cup of coffee, do they? No, they just sell lots of good coffee at a market decided price. And that is the problem with photographers. You guys are charging a production house rate to small businesses, and it doesn't work. There's a big difference between what a production house can charge B2B for sponsor-driven content at a sports level or a broadcast level, and what you can charge, let's face it, a junior self-taught creative to a small business. It just, by charging £3,000 or £4,000 for a single video, you're doing two things. You're pricing yourself out of the work. There are just so many small businesses that won't be able to afford to hire you even if they wanted to, right? Secondly, you're not actually providing the necessary value that you need to provide. Because think about it. Think about the photographers who do get that huge day rate. People like fashion photographers. Let's say a freelance fashion photographer gets hired by Nike to take pictures of 40 different t-shirts over the course of a day. And they get a big day rate, like a big fashion day rate, like $2,500 for the day, right? Well, the ROI on those photos are tens of thousands of pounds, because those photos of those 40 shirts are going to go on to be used on the Nike store online, and they're going to sell thousands and thousands of t-shirts off of those 40 different photos. Okay, so the return means that they can afford to spend big bucks on a really good fashion photographer. But you going down to a restaurant and shooting a couple of promo videos of cocktails and steaks for a small business down the street and expecting to charge £3,000 for that, you're just pricing yourself out. And if the business owner does make the mistake of hiring you to do that job, they're never going to hire you again to do it, because they're never going to see a return on that £3,000 that they're spending on a couple of videos and a couple of pictures. Whereas if you were to set a small monthly retainer, maybe like £300 to £500 a month, to go down a day a month and produce a bunch of social media content that they can pump out across their socials on a monthly basis and use that content to create new customers every single month, suddenly you could be on a really good retainer where you go down and create content that adds real value at a price where the business can get a return on that investment on a monthly basis. And instead of trying to squeeze 3K out of some small business, you're going to squeeze an acceptable $300 to $500 out of them every month for the next 2 years. Isn't that better? Isn't it better to be on the retainer? I think so. So that's talking point number one. Photographers and videographers, you're too expensive. Just to bash that point home one more time. I hear this excuse of photographers and videographers claiming that, the startup cost of their business, they had to spend 10 grand on fancy camera gear. Every business has a startup cost. But just because a coffee house has to spend 5 grand on their coffee machine, which sits at the end of every coffee bar that you've ever been to, doesn't mean that the coffee shop charges $50 for a cup of coffee. They just sell lots of coffee, okay? So that's not an excuse. I don't want to hear that excuse again. It makes me sick, that excuse. Because talking point number two, your job as a content creator, unless you create content for yourself, in which case I'm very happy for you, but if you're creating content for other businesses, your job is to add value by bringing attention to that business's products or services via content, okay? So they have to sell their products and services off the back of your content. It better come with a marketing plan, and it better not cost $5,000, because how is a small business supposed to get a return on a £5,000 video in a short enough time that they're willing to hire you again? Wouldn't it make more sense to create a product that adds real value by creating a big lump of content at a low cost on a long-term basis, monthly, so that that business can show that your content has added value and exposed their products and services to the market that then goes and spends money, showing that you were actually worth spending money on in the first place. Okay? What I always see with businesses that come to me for work is that in the past, they've basically spent all their marketing budget on one fancy looking video that just sits on their shelf. Okay? It's been uploaded to YouTube, it's got 32 views, nobody ever uses it for anything, but it costs their entire marketing budget of 3 or 4K because they're a small company, right? Well, what if you split that 4K across the course of a year? What is that? Something like 330 quid a month, something like that. And you were able to say, okay, I'm going to get you 20 Instagrammable shots that you can push out in social, a couple of clips, this, that, and the other, and we're going to bring attention to your products and services for that same budget. You're going to get a plethora of content. How much better do you look than that guy who basically ripped them off for a $4,000 video that sits on a shelf and never does anything? So that's talking point number 2. So your job as a content creator is to bring value to a business by drawing attention to their products and services. Okay? It's not so much an artistic form as being a fine art photographer. Your job is to expose products to the marketplace. Okay? So your pricing has to reflect that. Otherwise, you're pricing yourself out of the game. Okay, talking point number 3, Elon Musk versus Mark Zuckerberg. Elon Musk versus Mark Zuckerberg would be the biggest fight literally ever. Elon Musk versus Mark Zuckerberg would be the biggest fight literally ever. It would raise so much money for charity, and I even heard it's going to go down in the Colosseum in Rome. Now, personally, I'm a Musk guy, but I've got Zuck in this one just because of his background in jiu-jitsu. He's already winning tournaments, and I just feel like Zuck's got the youth, he's got the fitness, and he's got jiu-jitsu. I really don't see how Musk can win at this point unless there's something I'm missing. So Elon Musk versus Mark Zuckerberg. I hate to say it, but I think Zuck gets the win. Talking point number 3, Just Stop Oil. Oh my days, Just Stop Oil. I saw today they're getting dashed with water, they're getting dashed with milk, they're taking on Pride, causing a big stir there. I just really don't see why Just Stop Oil would want to take on Pride. I feel like that's some smoke they don't want. This is a group of people that have been fighting for rights for a long time. You don't want to get in their way. I just think this whole thing is kind of ridiculous. I can't see how they're actually gaining any momentum. They're just causing disruption. And I actually agree with Just Stop Oil's points, but I feel like they are super misguided in the way that they're going about things. That's just me. A lot of other people think that they're making a good point. I just think they're creating enemies rather than friends, unfortunately. Titan wreckage seems to have been found. There's a full investigation going on right now with the Titan wreckage. Also, when is X-Defiant out? Because I really feel like X-Defiant might be the game that topples Call of Duty. After the X-Defiant beta last week, I really feel like it could be the game that topples Call of Duty. I think just with the timing of what happened with the Leave Children Alone thing and the Nick Merckx thing, just Call of Duty is on a downtrend. I don't know if that reflects in player count. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But right now, it feels like X-Defiant is this rising force. And when it launches, what's going to happen? Are they going to topple Call of Duty? Or is this just another game that comes and goes because it doesn't have a BR? Like, I do worry that X-Defiant will be short-lived if it doesn't come up with some kind of BR solution. Like, if Halo can't stay on top without a BR, I don't see how X-Defiant's going to do it. Anyway, that's our talking points for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you in the next one. Make sure to follow on kick.com/John Isaacson, and I will see you there. Make sure you're there. Fortnite giveaways every month, every single month, because that's how we do. And yeah, have a good weekend.